Keeping the Flow podcast, hosted by Jason and Chad.
This podcast is sponsored by HydroVerge. Powerful innovation, saving time, money, and effort. Cordless, safe, efficient solutions made for field crews, built to last. Contact them at hydroverge.com.
All right, here we are, Chad. We're back for another episode today. So, how's your week been?
It's been good. It's been busy. So I've been running around like crazy and trying to keep everything straight. But I don't know if it's the heat or what. But I don't know.
It's been pretty hot, but with heat comes the rain too. So we've had some pretty substantial rainfalls too.
Absolutely, yeah. But no, other than that, it's been good stuff. And it's they say when it's time to make hay, right? So that's what we're doing. But enjoying the summer, that's for sure.
I liked your little LinkedIn post.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I guess.
So how do you feel about that, little spoon?
It was okay. I got ridiculed. So for those that are listening, Chad posted on our LinkedIn page the meme that was comparing us to like the whole CEO affair. And so he kind of had a little write up how people need to watch us because we can see them. And then it was him as the big spoon and me as the little spoon. So you have to check it out. It was a good, funny little mime.
Yeah.
Meme.
Yeah. No, I was having a little bit of fun. I mean, I think it only got like 600 impressions, so not that many people saw it,
On there, 600 people
Yeah.
looked at it?
Yeah.
All industry people, too.
Yeah, exactly.
So much for me ever moving up in the world.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be stuck as a small spoon.
Hey, well, you're more than welcome to make fun of me, so go ahead. And I mean, I don't know, it was a little fun. So I was hesitant for a minute, but I thought it would be funny to put it up. Get fun in this world, Jason.
Yeah. Anything else for good of the cause? Will we get rolling here?
No, I'm looking forward to talking with Jack. It's been a little bit of a challenge getting him on because of scheduling, and he just moved to Kansas City, so he was in the middle of that, and then we had scheduling conflicts. But no, Tnemec is a great product. We use it on most of our tanks in Illinois. We use other paints too, but Tnemec is one of the standouts, and I'm looking forward to see what he has to say. But he's a great guy, great product, and I'm gonna enjoy listening to Jack's.
And this isn't your hardware paint either that we're talking about. This is
right. You can't
engineer this thing.
You can't buy it at Home Depot. That's right.
Well, Chad, before we get into it, we do have a sponsor now. We picked up a sponsor for a couple of our episodes, so that we'll be spreading the word about HydroVerge. So this episode will be sponsored by HydroVerge. HydroVerge is a game changer in the water and wastewater world. HydroVerge designs powerful, practical tools that make some of the toughest utility jobs faster, safer, and a way more efficient. Since 2009, they've been helping crews avoid injuries and delays with gear that's smart, durable, and built to solve real-world problems. One of their standout tools is the Hydrant Buddy. The Hydrant Buddy is a lightweight, cordless valve exerciser that helps operators flush hydrants and valves without strain or injury. It's quiet, strong, and it gets the job done. And I really like this product. Actually, I've had a lot of people that have commented on it since we've been posting it on our Facebook. Honestly, I think that I might see our utility getting one because all of my folks, my operators have been seeing this out in the distribution system, for our flushing program, battery operated valve exerciser. So great product. Maybe you want to talk a little bit about their kerf cutter.
Yeah. So looks like their kerf cutter is a patented system that lets you repair broken valve box top sections in about 10 minutes without digging. So that's huge. Sounds like a great product already, but seriously, no jackhammers, no backhoes, just results. HydroVerge is all about supporting the people who keep our infrastructure flowing. Just people just like you, Jason. Check them out at hydroverge.com. That's HYDROVERGE.com. And a big thanks to them for sponsoring the show and a couple episodes here and the future of clean, reliable water. So thank you, HydroVerge. Check them out.
Yep, and they do. Like you said, they got some great projects for the guys out in the field doing the field work. So now that we got that, thank you, HydroVerge. Ready to get into this episode.
Yeah, absolutely. Can't wait.
All right, let's do it. Welcome back to our podcast, Keeping the Flow. I'm your host, Jason Upton, and with me is my co-host, Chad Johnson. And
How you doing?
Today we have a great guest that I'm excited to welcome, dealing with not just paint, Tnemec. He is going to tell us a little bit about Tnemec and himself. So welcome, Jack Walker, to the show.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Great to see anybody else doing content like this in this industry. Like I told you before we hit record, I've been doing it since about 2017, and it's always nice to meet other people who are out there doing it. So yeah, I'm a technical marketing manager for Tnemec. Tnemec is, if you're not familiar with us, it's the oldest, if not one of the oldest, privately held industrial coatings companies in North America. So we've been around since 1921. That's a long time out there helping people solve their problems, keeping the flow, so to speak, in the municipal area. And so it kind of started, Tnemec's a really weird name. When you see it, the way it's spelled doesn't make a whole heck of a lot of sense how to say it out loud. You know, in fact, I worked for a competitor for a long time. When I came over here, lots of people told me, congrats. I don't know how to say your new company's name, but if you've been in the industry for a while, it's Tnemec, and what it is, it's cement backwards. So that's our little claim to fame. And what happened was our founder discovered that cement actually has anti-corrosive properties when he was looking at rebar sticking out of some concrete. And he noticed that the rebar that had cement on it wasn't corroded. So the first coating was born with cement as an anti-corrosive property. And then that's where Tnemec came along.
Did you know that, Chad? I never, in all my years of being in the business, that's just made my day. That's made the whole show.
I can't remember. I can't remember who I was speaking with in Tnemec, but they go, "I'm so and so from Tnemec. That's cement backwards." I was like, "Okay." So like right off the bat.
Well, the bad thing is I'm sitting with like staring at the window, and I'm like, "Sure it is." He told us it was, but sure it is. So
you know, and I said we've been around for 100 years, and I've told nobody made this joke before, and I can't believe it, but I'm trying to get this started. We don't go to work, we go to crow.
Work
backwards. But I haven't done it. It's a bad dad joke, but I mean,
hey, it's awesome.
I can't say the word out loud, but when we hit the century mark, they did some century backwards posters, and
nice.
I'm not even going to try without looking at it. So.
Yeah, right. Exactly. No, so you guys are literally painting cement onto steel and everything, or that's how it got started?
No, so he saw rebar sticking out of concrete and saw that where cement was on the rebar, it wasn't corroding. So then he developed a paint that included Portland cement as a pigment, and then that pigment is what helped prevent the corrosion. And I think that's kind of part of everything that we do. I said, you know, a high industrial coatings company, and that's, we're looking at preventing corrosion. Corrosion is the costliest thing that we face as a society. The Association for Materials and Performance, AMP, I think estimates that number getting close to $1 trillion, but it's in the billions every year that we spend fighting corrosion. And that's not on paint. That's just in general. You know, we go back to you go back to high school science class, everything's trying to get back to its original form. And that's the corrosion. And so with our paint, we are just one of the many avenues people can use to stop that corrosion.
Yeah. So you guys have a marine division too, right?
We do. Yes.
So just saying, all the boats that need to be painted. I mean, it's amazing. It's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. We actually focus on about 8 strategic markets. As I explained kind of before we started, our bread and butter is water storage and water and wastewater treatment. It makes up a huge portion of our industry. And, there's some really cool things that happen with water storage. I know you don't really think about it, but when I started working at Tnemec, I couldn't help but notice water tanks everywhere and which municipalities were taking care of them and which weren't.
Yeah. Yeah. So, as you know, USG, that's our bread and butter. We paint tanks, and my claim to fame, or how I get in is you have a bowl of steel sitting up in the air full of water. What could go wrong? And when's the last time you looked at it? I don't know. Okay. Well, maybe we should look at it.
Right. Yeah.
So Chad comes from the industrial side. I come from the municipal side. How many different, are your paints based on the material that you're coating? So you have concrete, steel.
Mm-hmm.
What are some others? Is there any others?
Yeah. So you can run into aluminum, the different stainless steels, depending on how old the facility is. I recently learned that there's still water pipe out there made of wood.
Right.
Oh, yeah. And
not that I'm coding it, but yeah, you see in these municipalities all sorts of things from over the years. But I would say concrete is probably in the wastewater side of things, the thing that gets coated the most. And then in water storage, it's definitely steel. They do have concrete water storage tanks, but I think steel is definitely more common.
Yeah. So that, the thing about concrete is, yeah, it lasts a long time, but every concrete guy is going to kill me now, but there's only two types of concrete. One that's cracked and one that's going to crack.
You've been talking to Vaughn O'Day, haven't you? Yeah, and it's interesting. It's the most widely used construction material, right? Not just it, and it's rigid, and it's used because of its compressive strength and things like that. But it will, when we talk about adhesion for coatings, a lot of the times we have to report a number that's representative of the tensile strength of the concrete itself, because that bond, the concrete itself, is going to break before the coating breaks off of it. And so, a lot of the times if you look at a performance data sheet from a coatings company, you'll see, a kind of a really high number reported for adhesion for steel, but then maybe for concrete, it might report 400 or 500 PSI, but then note that the compressive strength of the concrete was about that much, and it was a cohesive break within the concrete itself, not the coating.
When you look at it, use of adhering to concrete, you have to have other factors such as like moisture, because a lot of as an individual who may or may not have tried to paint concrete at my house before, like concrete stuff or, maybe a foundation, it doesn't last very long because maybe it holds moisture. Next thing you know, it's peeling off or popping off of your concrete. So it looked good for a little bit. It wasn't that long lasting effect.
Right. Yeah. Concrete, I like to say, is a living, breathing thing. As it heats up, it outgasses, which can cause problems. And so that's where it gets its living, breathing thing. But it does provide lots of challenges for coatings, moisture vapor transmission, that moisture that you're talking about. If one side of the concrete, this usually happens with slab on grade, but if you have warmer air or colder air above a warmer, ground, what will happen is the moisture in the ground will actually start to try to come up into the room. And if there's a coating there, and that coating isn't a coating that's designed to handle that vapor pressure, you can have a lot of problems. But realistically, moisture is just one part of the problem. Proper surface prep with concrete can be really hard. And like Chad said, there's two types of concrete, the type that is cracked and those that are gonna crack. And so whenever you see cracks in concrete, when it comes to a coating system, you begin to start with, well, is this crack moving? Because if it's moving, we have to come in with something elastomeric, something that's flexible, something that's going to absorb that movement. Or if it's a non-moving crack, then maybe, it's already had its movement. So then you can handle it with a little bit more of a rigid system. And I think, just to kind of backtrack here real quick, we mentioned it before we started, but I hope people are catching on that I'm not talking about house paint at this point. That's
actually what
right.
I was going to have you explain too. And before we get much further, is how are you different than normal house paint?
Yeah, so we typically call ourselves high performance coatings. And what does that mean? So, a lot of times, I as well do a podcast about paint and I'm explaining to my friends, but I'm doing it about the high performance coatings. And they all joke with me like, how many episodes can you do about paint drying? And I'm like, well, you'd be amazed. There's lots of different ways it dries and it does this and it does that. And they're like, okay, paint nerd, go away. We didn't really mean it. But
I get the same thing on the water side. Like I have a lot of people like, so you're just talking about water? Like there's so many different aspects of water. And now we've entered the paint. So now we have two things that people can say. Like we talked about paint and water. Wow. Sounds exciting. But it is. It's exciting for folks that are in the industry or that deal with coatings.
they are, and I feel like it's kind of our responsibility as content creators. I kind of tuned into one of your last episodes, and you were like, "We're going to make this as interesting as we can," and I'm like, "Yes, that's exactly what we have to do." And so I try to always bridge the boring, talking about epoxies and polyurethanes and find some fun in it. And if you get into some of the science, it's kind of cool. There's coatings that can dry in seconds where their cure mechanism is so fast that you have to use a specialized gun where they actually mix in the gun right before it atomizes. Otherwise, it would set up an entire pump. And then there's more of a traditional plural application. And this is where I'm talking about the coating itself doesn't come in one bucket. It comes in 2 buckets or maybe 3 buckets because you have to mix all these things together to get your finalized high performance coating, whatever that may be. And that performance part is the big part because now we are testing our products and there are accelerated tests that are accepted by the industry, put together by industry panels and things like that really work on these, and adhesion was one of them. We literally test the PSI strength of how well a coating is adhered to a substrate. And really that's the basis of everything that we do, because if it doesn't stick to the substrate, if it's not where it's supposed to be, it can't do its job. So it needs to be able to do its job. And that really all starts with surface prep. And concrete, you just coat over the concrete that you have, coming back full circle, and you don't remove latents, which is that weak layer that happens as a form of the pouring. Well, now your coating system is only as strong as that weaker layer of concrete. So there's really a level of expertise that needs to come into when you're applying these high performance systems to these substrates, because ultimately at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is protect an even more expensive asset, and they're not going to want it to go bad, right? Like you as a municipal person, if my coating system failure is one of the worst days you could possibly have, right?
Are you guys getting much into like the pipe work? I say this because the coatings add any structural integrity to something. But if you have something that's concrete, maybe structurally it's starting to fail a little bit, your coatings do anything to strengthen it, or is it just kind of at that point the concrete's?
So yeah, there are certain levels of deterioration of that concrete. There's reinforcing rebar that's especially made for repairs. And believe it or not, some of our coatings are pretty close to concrete themselves. So whether that's an advanced type of concrete that you just add water to, and I'm oversimplifying and my chemists would murder me if they heard me right now, but then we also have concretes that are like made out of epoxies that are designed for more chemically aggressive areas. And if you think about a wastewater treatment plant, if you have a concrete clarifier or something, there's so many different mechanisms for corrosion in those areas that you really got to make sure you have the right coating, the right surface prep, and all those to handle it.
Right. And that's a good point too. I'm glad you can have the greatest coating in the world, and it's second, it possibly is. But the guy putting it on is the secondary part of that. If my kids go put on Tnemec paint, high-end coating, $500 a gallon, it doesn't mean it's going to work. There's a 2-part system there, right? Surface prep, guys know what they're doing, how to applicate your high-end coating, and then to make it work. So I don't imagine that you just have, some of your best customers aren't just guys off the street painting houses, that go paint a water tower, right?
Oh, that's exactly how you get yourself in a whole heck of a lot of trouble. I mean, we start our flooring training and, we talk about water towers. You go down water towers, there's the safety liability, all that kind of stuff. You're very familiar with that, Chad. You're hundreds of feet up in the air now trying to paint something. You have contamination concerns from the neighborhoods and all the other things that you have to deal with as opposed to just painting a house. But I mean, even in resinous floors, coatings for floors, we start our training for our sales reps with find a qualified applicator. Because if you don't have a qualified applicator, somebody who thinks they can just come in and know, hey, this is just like painting a house, well, then you can get in a lot of trouble because concrete, all the things I said about concrete before, it outgasses when the temperature is rising. There's moisture. It's a giant sponge. Moisture can just come through it. And you need to have a knowledge base that when you come across it, just like having a knowledge base for how to execute painting on an elevated water tank, those aren't just like everyday tasks.
Right. Exactly. And now it's windy. So figure that one out.
That's where you just get Murdoch from the A-team to go up there and do it.
Exactly. Up a helicopter. That's funny.
Is there anything in the water industry, anything new that's out now that you guys are seeing or promoting or trying to put out there for municipals?
Yeah, no, it's kind of interesting, and I'm going to try not to go down too much of my soapbox, but I actually have a paper that I'm hoping gets accepted, or a presentation that I hope gets accepted for the next AMP conference, talking about this very thing, that we are developing new exciting technologies. We've introduced 2 water-based products for NSF immersion. So they are not your traditional coatings that are used in those methods. However, water-based technology has come a long, long way, but it's still in the early adoptance era of products. Most people remember first generation acrylic paints and the first step up from house paint that was used in the industrial, and it had more weaknesses than strengths. And nowadays we are seeing the development of immersion grade water-based epoxies, which, if you're not familiar with the coatings industry, I probably sound like the teacher from Charlie Brown right now. But if you are familiar with coating formulation at all, this is a pretty huge breakthrough. But one of the interesting things, and this is the soapbox, is with our standards that we have in the industry, a lot of the times those standards are meant as benchmarks, as base levels of performance to make sure that we are giving the owners a decent product. But what I've seen happen over the years with those benchmarks is they've started to become the optimal targets as budgets become tighter and things like that. So now are we getting into a situation where we're disincentivizing innovation because we're actually going for the benchmark? And that's what we're accepting in our bid packages. If we have something that performs a little bit better, maybe now it's a disproportionate bid adjustment, or, contractors may not want to offer a substitution because they may appear biased to the manufacturer. So just starting to wonder, as we look into these things, do we want the innovation? But yes, the answer, the short answer is we are developing some amazing next steps with water-based technology. We have a brand new, it's called a product that is a water-based, we're calling it a silicon grafted composite. And basically this is a top coat that is showing weathering, gloss, and color retention similar to a fluorourethane. And if you're familiar with fluorourethanes, those are the very best. This is what we paint our water tanks with, because when we climb up to paint those water tanks, we don't want to do it again for 30 years. So
that would be my question. What are we measuring? What is this performance that we're measuring? Like protection performance, or is it like how long it actually lasts? For me being in charge of a municipality, I kind of want both. I want it to protect and I want that long lasting because I don't like to, it's never fun. We're going through it right now on a couple of our towers, especially with everything that's up on a water tower today.
Yes.
Communication. You've got to get all of that stuff off and they're not happy. And then you got that coordination aspect of getting everything off of your water,
Sure.
prepping it for a bait. So we don't like to have to go through that. So if you can tell me, oh, this is going to last you, you ain't going to have to mess with it for a number of years. That's one of the things. And then the protection.
Yeah. And so I kind of hinted at performance testing, and I only really kind of brought up adhesion testing, but there's kind of this balance that you find between existing technologies and the case histories and what they've done actually in real life. But then as a coatings manufacturer, I can't wait 30 years to come out with a new technology to, be like, oh, guys, guess what? 30 years ago, I formulated this product and now I can tell you 100% it lasts 30 years. But what we do is we know technologies that have done that. So we learn from the past. So like I was talking about the first generation of acrylic coatings or the first generation of polyurethanes or things like that. We learned how to make them weather better as we go along, prove their color and gloss retention as an industry. This isn't just Tnemec, but at Tnemec specifically, what we are looking for is a way to give you those performance properties so that we know that we are actually going to give you the lowest life cycle cost long term. You mentioned something, an astronomical number for a single bucket of paint, and that's true for some of the top coats, but those top coats are designed to last for those 30 years. And so the accelerated tests, though, you can't look at them completely alone because there are people in the industry who have questioned the accelerated tests because they don't mimic real life well enough. But that's really the problem because real life is too variable to mimic. I mean, a water tank with you in Rock Island and a water tank in Austin, Texas are going to have two extremely different service environments. The water tank in Austin, Texas is going to see significantly higher UV radiation, and the color and gloss of whatever coating it is on there is going to break down faster than yours in Rock Island. So what we have to do is, again, going back to high school science class, we create fixed environments that are known to either accelerate corrosion and so there's the old standard B11 salt fog. And literally you have this machine that looks like your garage deep freezer, and you open it up and it's got a bunch of literally fog of salt. So it's hot, humid, and salt. And we know salt is a driver of corrosion. Okay. So in this test, we have a fixed environment that is heavily corrosive. And so then what we can do is take a new coating technology and compare it to one that's been in service for a really, really long time. We run it through that same accelerated test. And then through that accelerated test, what we know through real life, we can extrapolate how long these coatings are lasting. And now fluorourethanes are just now hitting the point in age where they are maybe even starting to last a little bit longer than we originally thought. I have several case histories in my deck where they fluorourethane water tank, maybe even one of yours, Chad, but I'm not going to swear by it, got inspected by a third-party inspector at 25 years, and there were a handful of touch-ups that needed to be done, but the inspector expected 6 to 8 more years of service after just those touch-ups. So we are getting to the point where if we can look at those accelerated tests and determine, hey, these products, like I said, the fluorourethanes have been around for 30 years. We have this new one that we're starting to see similar performance in the accelerated tests. And some of the tests they do for color and gloss are insane. The Amakwa test I jokingly call it like the Bug Zapper 8000 because it's just a bunch of mirrors in Arizona that they use to harness all the radiant energy of the sun on a panel. And then basically, in order to have a good rating of that test for water tanks, you have to have 95% gloss retention. which is a
Like for water towers, you kind of want to keep them looking pretty because that's we've talked about it quite a few times. Like that's the one thing that when people go into your town that they kind of notice. So they get a lot of branding sometimes that happens with water towers too. So you want to make sure that that brand stays.
Well, yeah, a lot of times you're getting the town sports team, you're getting the high school, but then in even some of the bigger municipalities, they're doing fuel-on murals. And these things are insane. Tnemec does a competition every year called Tank of the Year, where we have people submit their coated tanks, their water tanks that they did that year. SG always has plenty in there, and we select some. And last year's winner was a full-on horse racing mural that this guy did at like 250 feet. And it's huge.
That is a point, not to steal your thunder, Jack, but we should have Eric Hen on. So Eric Hen is a muralist, and he is brilliant. Some of the things that he has, I'm going to ask him. But no, so that was in Arlington, Texas, right?
Yep.
And he had
he's doing one in Arlington. This one was in Grand Prairie, Texas. The one he's doing in Arlington is even cooler, and I don't want to steal his thunder, but it involves all the you can see it from Jerry's Palace, and it involves his guys and some of the other sports teams.
Oh, too. Nice. Oh, that'd be fun. So yeah, that's a reminder. I'm going to write that down. Eric, if you're listening, I'm coming for you because he's fun. He's a good time. So Tank of the Year. So one of the finalists was our Dum Dum tank. That's in Ohio.
Oh, that was Tank of the Year 2 years ago, actually.
Yeah,
so
and Bryan, Ohio.
Bryan, Ohio.
Yeah. So they have the Dum Dum plant there, and then on the plant there's a water tower, and they painted the legs. It's a legged tank. They painted the legs to look like Dum Dums, the sticks, and then it's really neat.
It's really, really cool. Yeah, every leg is a stick, and then there's every different flavored Dum Dum as it goes around the shell.
See if I can pull it up real quick.
It wouldn't be a mess either, Jack, if we didn't talk about like environmental. So dealing with drinking water, not so much on the wastewater side, but on the drinking water side, what has affected Tnemec and have to look at different technology. You go back to lead. That's one of the tests that they have to do before they even start painting a tank. See if there's any lead in the ground around where they're going to be doing some work. Lead. Now you have in today's world, you have PFAS. PFAS. Do those things have any effect on the paint, or what are you guys doing to look at those different regulations?
Sure. So there's a couple things there. So let's talk about a liner for a water tank. Okay. So this is a coating, like you said, we're going on the inside of the water tank. Well, all of these you have to put a lining in a water tank. You have to get it certified and do third-party testing. Now, you can do that third-party testing through the governing body, which is NSF, or there are other agencies that do that third-party testing as well. But basically what happens is they have a whole formula and a long list of contaminants or leachables that they're looking to see if they leach out of your coating into the water. So then once they do this, you are giving a surface area to volume ratio. And what that surface area to volume ratio basically tells you is this coating is suitable for this size tank. And obviously, it's all based on how much they think can potentially leach into the water. So what happened, I believe it was 2023, NSF 600 passed. And that brought down significant levels of some of the solvents that are traditionally used in coatings. And so now, if you're certified to NSF 600, which all of Tnemec's coatings are that we use for NSF lightings, and I believe most of the major competitors meet the update as well. But what that does is make sure that these coatings are safe for the drinking water. And so the governing body dictates all that. And then we make sure that when we're selling coatings for the lining for that we're following all of those safety guidelines that were given to us. Kind of going into the sustainability and in green level things. Real quick before I go to that, those coatings that go into linings are tested and certified down to the color and manufacturing location. So it is followed and it is very carefully documented just so that we can make sure that everybody's drinking water is safe, because that we want that as much as everybody else. The sustainable part is really one of the reasons why Tnemec has been exploring a water-based technology so much. It's significantly lower in VOCs and when HAPs and those kind of things. And what VOCs are, volatile organic compounds. HAPs are considered hazardous air pollutants. These are the solvents and things that you find in traditional paints, and very much like lead. I mean, dang, that lead paint worked really good, but we don't want lead anywhere around. So eventually what we have seen is over the last 20 or 30 years, the industry has moved to higher solids coatings or water-based coatings. And the higher solids just means there's less solvent in there. But what usually comes with the higher solids coatings, though, is a little bit more trickier of an application, whether that's a plural application now where you have a pump that's, if you think about your standard paint pump, you just put the bucket under it and you go. Well, a plural, now you're pumping in a part A and a part B out to a remote mix manifold where they come together mix right before the gun. And you have to do that because those solvents really helped the working time and the workability of those products. So now you're heating those products to get that workability, but that heat is causing them to kick off fast enough that if you were mixing them in a bucket, you would not get them out of the paint sprayer fast enough. So that's one of the ways sustainability has moved. But then I'm also a firm believer in one of the biggest ways that coatings can be sustainable is just preventing corrosion for as long as possible. Steel production is not sustainable. The steel, it creates a lot of stuff. So if I can protect an asset longer, I'm being sustainable in a way just because we're not generating as much from the manufacturing of the steel.
Yeah, 100% right. If you paint steel, it will last forever as long as you keep up with the coatings.
Right. And there are systems and documented industry standards. I mean, go back to the joke about how much can you really talk about paint? Well, I mean, there are at least 4 joint industry standards on abrasive blasting alone. Then you can get into other surface preparation methods. And, there's at least 3 governing 2 of the governing bodies merged, but then there's ISO, and it depends on if you're doing work in North America or doing work in Europe. Some of the Europeans follow the ISO standards. So there's a lot to it.
When you start talking about who actually regulates painting of tanks, because I guess my question would be, so I found out was there a rule change maybe 2 or 3 years ago to 300 or something that
the 600.
600.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was talking about.
Tower, water tower painting, and happened to be at a conference getting ready to get our towers painted in the future. And I heard that, but who gets that? Maybe this is a plug for your podcast. How does that information make it to the municipal? So that if you have a small municipal that's, maybe working with, maybe they don't have the professionals like Chad's group that they're working with. How do you get that information to them so they know what's right to put on their water?
Sure. So I left out a very important governing body when it comes to water storage, and that's AWWA, or the American Water Works Association. Provide the NSF 600, which provides the guidelines for leachables in the waters and coatings for storage tanks, is put together by a joint industry committee under AWWA. So then how do we get that information out there? I mean, so there's AWWA does a lot to get the information out there. A lot of people who are heavily involved in that industry are members. But then on top of that, there's not on top of a national conference every year, there's local conferences. I believe they have a newsletter and podcast, but like Tnemec And me specifically, as the technical marketing manager, I look at one of the primary functions of my role as education. And so with whether that's training my guys to be up to industry standards so that they can have intelligent conversations with their customers and update them, or whether that's through a podcast that customer can find on his own, or even lunch and learns at those kind of things. I also host a monthly webinar series where we dive into these different topics, where I'll get a different SME from Tnemec to come on. So we really, as a high performance company and as somebody who's kind of pushing for innovation for higher performing products, education is just a major part of what we do, because we really want people to understand what they're getting in that coating and how to understand to look at a polyurethane versus a fluorourethane or versus an epoxy. They are all good at what they do. If you put them somewhere they're not supposed to be, though, they'll show themselves. It'd be like putting an NBA player into an NFL game. Very few of them would do okay. So you got to make sure you're putting the right coating in the right place. And that's all comes down to really trying to educate the customers. So through the podcast, I try to take some of these really difficult things and oversimplify them and try to have fun with it too, if I can.
Yeah. Paint is exciting.
There's probably a certain level of training too for those that are applied, and it shows my ignorance, but I think it's been quite a while ago. We were looking at different paint coatings, and I wasn't even aware that they have like different paint coatings that can tell if the application was wrong. Like you shine a light in there, and it's like it's the areas that were missed really stand out. Yeah. So there's probably a certain level of training for application too as well.
Yeah, so you kind of made me think of a product that I was familiar with that had a fugitive dye in it. And it was, 100% solids epoxy meant to go on at a mil thick, and it was clear. So it was really hard to see if you were spraying. So they put a dye in there, and if you hit it with the black light, you can see exactly where you've sprayed. And then that helps in these dark tanks and things like that where people have low visibility. So there are little things that you can do in formulation to help those things.
What's the most off the wall product or structure, whatever, that's been painted by Tnemec paint that somebody'd be like, hey, that's I know what that is. Anything you could think of besides a water tank, a cool water tank?
I was gonna say, if you see a cool water tank, there's a high probability that it's us. But one of the ones that we use, and I'm going to get the location wrong.
It's taking credit for all the cool water tanks right off the bat.
Yeah.
All the cool ones.
All the cool. They're not the other ones, because they would be us if they were cool, right? I mean, Come on. No, in all seriousness, though, so one of the big project profiles we have a big architectural line of coatings too, because if you think about some of these historic buildings and other things like that, they want their assets to look just as nice as people who own water tanks. Amazon built a really cool headquarters, I believe, in California. Don't get me wrong. I'm going to get the location wrong, but there's Amazon spheres, and it's these two bubble honeycomb looking things that is a corporate office, but it is a very cool piece of architecture that has our coatings on it.
Well, Google that. Amazon spheres, Tnemec paint.
So was that the coolest project that you worked on? The Amazon
Probably. I've had a short time. I've only been at Tnemec for a year, so I'm still getting my feet wet here. But tanks are the water tanks are our bread and butter, and it's like when you walk down, it's almost like Eric Kinn's greatest hits. Again, this man does 200 foot by 200 foot murals on the side of water tanks, and I get to walk through a building every day that has a picture of every one of them.
Very cool.
So kind of wrapping it up for our listeners, any words of thought or words of wisdom? Any words of wisdom from you?
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I would say if you're, new to the industry, there's a lot of resources out there to learn. One of my passions is to, help people connect the dots on some of these harder concepts. So there, between, you know, guys like yourself and other people out there in the industry, there really are a lot of avenues to get to know how to differentiate coatings better, because realistically, nobody dreams of getting in the coating business. Nobody was like 8 years old and goes, man, I want to sell paint when I grow up, or man, I really want to paint water towers when I grow up. And I say that to say, when people go through college, there's only a handful of corrosion engineer, paint engineer things. So a lot of times people come out, they're new to the industry, they're mechanical engineers, and you start talking about coatings and the different tests, it's really becomes hard to differentiate. So learning about those things, learning while they're important, so that we can really lower asset lifecycle costs. I know that, you know, asset management is one of your things, Chad, and really we want to make sure that we're helping our asset owners in the long run have the lowest life cycle costs that they can. And we believe that that's in providing them the best paint that they can for the first time that they coat their asset, so that it can last longer. You know, you can look at AWWA D102, which provides you, it's, I think 7 different outside systems and around the similar number of recommended inside systems for water tank, and they're all recommended in that standard. However, a 3-coat alkyd system is not going to last nearly as long as a standard zinc epoxy urethane system. So it's important to know the differences and know that just because they're both necessarily recommended as a way to get the job done, they're really good, better, best scenarios. And those performance tests and case histories are how you differentiate between those technologies, even within the same technology sphere.
Makes sense to me.
Good. Well, thanks for coming on today, Jack. You want to do a plug for your podcast?
Sure.
We
Yeah.
were
Right
talking
now.
a little bit before I went on, and I'm telling you a little bit about us. Maybe a plug for your podcast as well.
Yeah, I'm on a little bit of a hiatus right now, but I'm really excited about what we're bringing back. So I've done industrial coatings podcasts since 2017. I did about over 200 episodes for a competitor, but now I am hosting a podcast called Coatings Decoded. We try to come to you about once a month with some kind of story or informational piece that's going on in the industry, whether that's how somebody can overcome a challenge through a coating solution, or maybe just a standard change like that NSF 600 we ran episodes on. So it's a good way to just kind of get a little bit more information about what we got going on. And we're going to be coming back soon, and I'm really looking forward. So,
Are you going to have me on, Jack, or what?
absolutely. That was going to be the next question. I need to talk to you about,
Absolutely. I'll be
tanks.
on. Yeah,
Sweet.
let's do it. Let's do it.
We got the professional right there, Chad. So
Yeah, there you go.
thanks again for coming on with us. And getting the word out about the different coatings, and I learned that concrete backwards or cement backwards.
Cement, yeah.
Yeah. So something that I wouldn't have known if we wouldn't have had this podcast. So again, thanks for coming on. You got anything else before we sign off, Chad?
No, Jack, thank you. It was a little bit of, the backstory, a little bit of a rigmarole trying to get Jack on, but we got him on, and not to his fault. I'll take some of the blame on that as well, but no, I appreciate it, Jack. Thanks for making the time, and I look forward to seeing you on your podcast too. It'll be a lot of fun. So thank you for showing up.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I love that you guys are doing this, and I'll be looking for more episodes from you guys as well. And just keep the information coming. It just helps everybody.
Keep the flow. Yes.
Keep
I
the
was gonna
flow.
say, you beat me to it. I was going to say, yeah, we're just going to keep the flow. So
All right,
thanks
Jack.
again.
Thank you.
Thank you.